Did you know that around 50% of patients with liver cirrhosis will develop gastroesophageal varices during the course of their disease? Hey guys, and welcome to How to Gastro, Medical Lectures Made Easy, presented by me, Dr. I. Govender. And in today's video, we'll be doing a deep dive into esophageal varices and the causes, diagnosis, and management. So let's get started. So what are esophageal varices? Esophageal varices are enlarged, dilated veins that develop beneath the lining of the lower esophagus. They occur when increased pressure within the portal venous system forces blood to flow through smaller collateral veins, causing them to become swollen, enlarged, and fragile. So, although they are usually asymptomatic, they may rupture and result in a severe, life-threatening upper GI bleed. So, from this definition of esophageal varices, we understand that they are enlarged and dilated veins that may develop beneath the lining of the lower esophagus. So, if we take a closer look at this image right here, we see that there's a whole range of dilated veins, and this is just underneath the lining of the esophagus, which is the innermost layer. So, normally in normal healthy individuals who have a normal healthy liver, this process will not develop. These esophageal varices will not develop. But when there is a backlog of flow through the liver due to diseases like liver cirrhosis, where the liver becomes fibrotic, it actually increases the pressure in this vein here, which is called the portal vein. And when we have an increase in pressure here in this vein, the collateral veins that actually feed into these veins suffer and they become enlarged. And some of the veins that do become enlarged are the veins of the lower esophagus and the stomach. So esophageal varices are enlarged, fragile veins that develop underneath the lining of the lower esophagus, and they can bleed out in instances where portal hypertension becomes really high, and it will cause these fragile walls of these vessels to burst. So portal hypertension means high blood pressure in the system of veins that carry blood from your digestive organs to your liver. So I'll explore that in a bit of the later slides, but just keep in mind that this is what esophageal varices basically are. So remember we spoke about portal hypertension. So this is actually the root cause behind esophageal varices even developing. So portal hypertension means there's a high volume of blood pressure in the portal vein. So this here is the portal vein. And this usually happens because scar tissue in the liver, such as from liver cirrhosis, makes it difficult for blood to flow through the liver. So remember, the portal vein brings blood to the liver, and it actually drains blood from the stomach, the lower esophagus, the spleen, the pancreas, the small intestines, and the large colon. And all this blood, full with nutrients, is actually filtered by the liver. But when there is a disease in the liver where the portal vein cannot actually push blood freely, there will be a backlog in the flow, and this is what portal hypertension actually is. So as a result, pressure builds up in the portal vein, just like traffic backing up on a busy road. And this increased pressure can cause swollen veins to form, which are called varices. So as we can see here, this is actually where the increase in pressure comes from. And then we have these swollen veins that actually develop in the lower esophagus. So over time, these veins enlarge, becoming thin-walled varices that are vulnerable to rupture. And that is a life-threatening emergency, so we try to avoid that at all costs for these patients who suffer from extreme cases of liver disease or liver failure. But let's explore this portal system a bit further, just so that we can have a firm understanding as to why portal hypertension and esophageal varices actually develop. So the portal venous system is a network of veins that drain blood from the following organs in your belly: the small intestine, the large intestine, the stomach, the pancreas, the spleen, the gallbladder. So all these basic organs actually feed into the portal vein, which feeds into the liver. So numerous small veins drain blood from the stomach, intestines, pancreas, and the spleen into the portal vein, and the portal vein then delivers this nutrient-rich blood to the liver, where it is filtered by the liver, processed, and detoxified before returning to the systemic circulation. So the liver is a powerhouse organ which processes several of the nutrients that we intake, making it more compactable and available for storage reasons. So the liver actually performs various functions based on the nutrient-rich blood it's fed by the various organ systems in the body. So if we have any disease in the liver, such as hepatitis, which is inflammation of the liver, we can have viral hepatitis, autoimmune hepatitis, or anything that blocks the flow of blood into the liver, such as thrombus, that will cause a backlog in that blood flow. Anything of that sort will cause portal hypertension or esophageal varices. So again, we have the cirrhotic liver where blood is not able to flow freely. And there we have these enlarged veins that develop within the lower esophagus. And this is what these veins look like on endoscopic view. It's actually got sort of like a blue discoloration to it. So what causes portal hypertension? So as we mentioned, liver cirrhosis is by far the most common cause of portal hypertension worldwide. And other hepatic causes include alcoholic liver disease. So here, long-term alcohol use also damages the liver, causing scarring and increasing portal hypertension. So if we have portal hypertension, we will have the development of esophageal varices. We can also have chronic hepatitis B and C infections. So chronic viral infections causing liver inflammation and scarring will cause a rise in pressure in the portal system as well. We can also have metabolic dysfunction associated liver disease or steatorrheic liver disease, where fat accumulation and inflammation leads to scarring and increased portal hypertension. And then less commonly, we can have portal hypertension from portal vein thrombosis. So this occurs before that blood even reaches the liver. We have a thrombus that develops in the portal vein. So blood clot in the portal vein blocks the flow of blood into the liver, causing an increased pressure in the portal system. And then we can have Budd-Chiari syndrome, which occurs after the blood flows through the liver. And this is a blockage in the hepatic veins that prevents blood from leaving the liver, causing pressure to build up in that portal system, also leading to esophageal varices. And then finally, we can also have right-sided heart failure, which is another cause after that blood has left the liver. So when the right side of the heart fails, blood backs up into the veins, and this includes blood backing up into the portal system, causing a portal hypertension or a esophageal varice. So why do varices bleed? So as the portal pressure continues to increase, as that backlog becomes larger, the varices begin to enlarge and their walls become progressively thinner. So if you imagine a balloon, the more you push air into a balloon, the more fragile the balloon walls become, and the more prone it will be to popping. So this combination of the high internal pressure and the fragile vessel walls greatly increases the likelihood of a rupture. So there we will have the bleeding out of these esophageal varices. So how do patients with esophageal varices actually present? So as we've mentioned in the previous slides, most patients with esophageal varices experience no symptoms of the actual varices until bleeding occurs. So in some cases, the presence of chronic liver disease may be suspected because of jaundice, abdominal swelling, or fatigue. So remember, we said the majority of cases, except for right heart failure, Budd-Chiari syndrome, as well as a thrombus in the portal system, most of the cases of esophageal varices are actually caused by liver disease, such as hepatitis, liver cirrhosis, alcoholic liver disease, or fatty liver disease. And then, in these cases, these patients will present with jaundice, encephalopathy, which is confusion, spider angiomas, a lack of body hair, muscle wasting, widened blood vessels, and this is known as caput medusa, which occurs on the tummy of these patients, ascites, which is the fluid buildup in the abdominal space, and red palms, which is known as palmar erythema. So acute bleeding due to the varices typically presents with hematemesis, which is the vomiting up of fresh blood, or melena, which refers to black tarry stools. So when we have a case of acute bleeding of these esophageal varices, The patient may experience one of two symptoms or perhaps even both. They may vomit up fresh blood, which is known as hematemesis, or if they don't vomit up the blood, they can experience melena. Melena basically means stool and partly broken down blood. So remember, as blood moves through the digestive system, it mixes with the digestive enzymes and fluids, and it will be partially broken down. And in this case, that digested blood comes out as coffee grounds or a very dark, tarry stool. So these patients may have a sign of very dark stool. So patients may also develop dizziness, weakness, or a low blood pressure, a rapid heart rate, or even collapse due to significant blood loss. So if the blood loss is severe, which can happen in some cases, the patients will go into shock, where they will experience the symptoms of shock. And a very important point that we do need to mention is variceal hemorrhages is a medical emergency and requires immediate treatment. So if we look at the physical examination, as we said, patients with portal hypertension often have clinical signs of chronic liver disease, and these may include hepatomegaly with ascites, fluid in the abdomen, liver cirrhosis on an ultrasound, carpal medusae, which is dilated veins around the umbilicus, icterus, which is basically yellowing of the sclera of the eye, palmar erythema, which are those red palms due to an impaired breakdown of sex hormones, spider nevi, which are isolated telangiectasies. They're basically tiny little fragile blood vessels on the surface of the skin that look like a spider, leukonchia due to hypoalbuminemia, finger clubbing, and astrexis, which is the abnormal motor function due to faulty metabolism. So these are all physical examination signs, but of course, again, these will only occur in patients who suffer some sort of liver disease. So recognizing these features helps identify the underlying cause of varices. So how are esophageal varices diagnosed? So an upper gastrointestinal endoscopy is the gold standard for diagnosing esophageal varices. And on endoscopy, esophageal varices can appear as tortuous veins protruding into the lumen of the esophagus. They can sometimes be bluish in appearance. They are commonly classified as small, medium, or large according to their size. So here we see small, medium, and large. We see that they are tortuous veins that protrude into the lumen of the esophagus. And then high-risk features include red wale markings, which are these red lines that occur in the middle of the varice, cherry red spots, as we can see here, and white nipple signs. And all these signs actually indicate an increased risk of future or ongoing bleeding. So once we see varices that have any of these signs, this is actually an alarm signal to say that perhaps they could rupture soon, or perhaps they have been bleeding out from time to time. The medical management of esophageal varices. So vasoactive medications such as teleprosine and octreotide should be started as soon as variceal bleeding is suspected because they reduce the portal pressure and improve bleeding control. So broad-spectrum antibiotics such as ceftriaxone are also recommended because bacterial infections are common during variceal hemorrhage and are associated with worse outcomes. And then the endoscopic treatment. So endoscopic variceal band ligation is the preferred treatment for bleeding esophageal varices. So during the procedure, small elastic bands are placed around the enlarged veins, cutting off their blood supply and causing them to thrombose, meaning become a clot and eventually disappear. As we can see here, the endoscope goes down with several bands around its neck, and the scope actually hovers over the esophageal varice and the band is released, and then in that way the varice is banded, and in time this will actually thrombose, become a clot, and fall off. And in this way we can actually prevent a bleeding episode. And then we can also do endoscopic injection sclerotherapy, and this can be considered when band ligation is unavailable or technically difficult. And here again in sclerotherapy, basically a needle is introduced into the varice with chemical substances that also basically cause the varice to thrombose and eventually flatten and disappear. So what if bleeding cannot be controlled? So if bleeding continues despite medication and endoscopic therapy, temporary balloon tamponade using the Sengstaken and Blakemore tube may be required as a bridge to definitive treatment. So the deflated balloon catheter is introduced through the nose of the patient and makes its way into the esophagus. And then we find the portion of the esophagus where the esophageal varice is present. And then we can actually inflate this balloon with fluid, causing it to push against the vessel walls. And once the balloon compresses the hemorrhaging blood vessel or the varus in the stomach and esophagus, the bleeding will actually cease. And then patients with uncontrolled or recurrent bleeding may benefit from a transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic shunt, which is known as TIPS, which lowers the portal pressure by creating a channel between the portal and hepatic veins. So as we can see here, we have the shunt which is introduced, and this connects the branch of the portal vein into the hepatic vein. So here we have the portal vein, which flows into the liver, and the hepatic vein, which flows out of the liver. And here, once we've created this shunt, the blood is able to come straight into the liver and flow directly out of the liver, thereby missing the actual chaos and traffic that is caused within the liver, especially in a cirrhotic liver. So what are the complications of esophageal varices? So the most serious complication, as we mentioned earlier, of the esophageal varices is massive upper GI hemorrhaging, which may lead to hypovolemic shock, multi-organ failure, and death if not treated promptly. So recurrent bleeding is common, emphasizing the importance of secondary prevention and close follow-up. So in summary, esophageal varices are dilated submucosal veins that develop as a consequence of portal hypertension, most commonly due to liver cirrhosis. So although they often remain silent until they rupture, bleeding varices constitute a life-threatening medical emergency. Early diagnosis with an upper GI endoscopy, prompt medical and endoscopic treatment, and effective prevention strategies can significantly reduce morbidity and mortality. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found the presentation very interesting and informative. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and to share this video with someone you think may benefit from it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.